They say some houses aren't just haunted by ghosts, but by memories, blood, and the sins no one dares to speak of. Tonight, we travel back to the 19th century, to a forgotten mansion deep in the American Midwest, where one woman's inheritance becomes a doorway to an ancient, spiritual darkness her family tried to bury. This is the story of Whispers of the Forgotten Saint. Whispers of the Forgotten Saint. Chapter 1. The Inheritance. Clara Whitmore clutched the tattered letter, its ink faded and the paper as thin as the wings of a moth. The lawyer's words confirmed what she hardly dared believe. She was the sole heir to the Whitmore estate, a darkened mansion in a remote Midwestern town, abandoned for 70 years. The house had been sealed shut after an unspeakable scandal, and now its heavy oak doors would creak open at her name. Clara felt a tremor of both excitement and dread in her heart. The Whitmores had once been pillars of the community, devout and respectable by every outward measure, but Clara had caught glimpses of a deeper legacy. Whispers clung to their name, like cobwebs, stories of hypocrisy, of a ministry that cloaked darker rites. She scarcely understood them, but knew the family name had long carried a heavy silence. Her father used to hush any mention of Whitmore House with an uneasy glance. Clara had always accepted it without question, but tonight, the weight of her inheritance settled cold on her shoulders. Tomorrow, she would set out for that house, and at last face the ghost of Whitmore's past in the flesh. Chapter 2. The Journey. Twilight fell as Clara traveled by rail into the prairies. The sun dipped behind rolling fields and tangled woods, and she felt the air grow colder with each passing mile. At the small station of the nearest town, she found no Whitmore name on any sign. Even the townsfolk seemed cautious as they helped her with a single, battered trunk. A horse-drawn carriage carried her along a winding dirt road into the forest, the trees like silent sentinels guiding her home. When the abandoned estate finally came into view, Clara's stomach tightened. The carriage passed through rusted stone pillars into the overgrown grounds. A crow burst from the branches overhead as she took her first step out of the carriage. Clara's hand trembled on the latch of the iron gate. The journey was over. Now she truly faced whatever awaited inside. Chapter 3. The House. The house sat atop a hill under a sky of gunmetal clouds. It was a vast Gothic structure of stone and timber, the balconies sagging, windows shuttered and grimy. Moss clung to stone gargoyles, frozen in eternal watch, and vines strangled the once stately oak columns. Clara hesitated on the threshold, hearing only her own heartbeat reverberating against walls of silence. In the foyer, dusklight revealed a grand staircase splitting like a church's nave. Clara swallowed. It felt as though she had entered some long-forgotten cathedral. The silence was heavy, as if the house watched her with unseen eyes. Each footstep stirred dust motes in the air as she moved further inside. Night came swiftly. Clara lit a single candle in a bracket by the staircase and began to explore the empty halls, the lantern's flame dancing like a silent spirit in the long shadows. She found a parlor with cracked leather chairs and a portrait of a stern man in clerical robes, eyes that seemed to follow her with reproach. For a moment, Clara thought she heard a sigh on the wind, then the faintest echo of a child's lullaby, or perhaps an old hymn, drifted through the closed windows. Her heart skipped, but when she turned, The halls were empty once more, and the silence felt colder than before. Clara took a shuddering breath. "It must be the wind," she murmured, though even she doubted the words. Chapter 4. The Whispers. Clara awoke in darkness. The house had settled into the midnight hour, moonlight slanting through broken shutters. As she rose to refill her lantern, she noticed for the first time a delicate carving on the mantel, an unfamiliar symbol of an encircled oak leaf and a pair of staring eyes. Gooseflesh rose on her arms as memories of a childhood tale came back, whispers of the Whitmore's secret devotion to a saint who had long been forgotten. The silence pressed against her ears until it seemed to close her in. Forcing herself from the bench, Clara murmured a prayer she hardly remembered and knelt by the hearth, praying for courage in the dark. Only the oppressive silence answered her. Chapter 5. The Hidden Journal. In a dusty bedroom upstairs, Clara found a locked cedar bureau. The key lay on the floor beneath it, as though waiting. With trembling fingers, she opened a hidden drawer inside to reveal a leather-bound journal and a strange silver medallion bearing the same oak leaf symbol. Inside the journal, faded script spilled across brittle pages. Clara began to read by the flicker of her lantern. Each entry was dated, beginning in the early 1800s, and written in a careful hand. By candlelight, Clara read descriptions of midnight prayers to an ancient figure named St. Aldwyn. At first, the entries described devotion, an altar of oak, chalices of wine, whispered hymns under a full moon. But soon the tone twisted darker, vows of silence, offerings given in shadows. As Clara turned each page, the air in the room seemed to grow heavier and colder. Her fingers trembled. The oak leaf symbol appeared over and over, and dark stains marred the edges of the paper. By the final pages, Clara could barely bring herself to breathe. Chapter 6. Echoes of the Past. Clara sat among moth-eaten drapes as a storm gathered outside, its winds rattling the windows. The journal's pages crackled as she turned them, each entry describing secret midnight rituals, prayers not to God, but to St. Aldwyn of the woods and sacrifice. Her breath hitched as she read of offerings, candles and flowers at first, then a lamb, then a child. The final entry ended abruptly with one sentence scrawled and trembling. "We have not kept our promise." Clara closed her eyes. For a moment, the only sound was her own heart pounding in her chest. Outside, the first drops of rain began to drum against the roof, a low moan that echoed her mounting dread. It felt as if the secret had been in her blood all along. Chapter 7. The Saint's Shadow. As midnight fell again, the house felt alive. The carved symbol from the journal, the twisted oak leaf, seemed to bleed, meaning into the floorboards. Clara wandered into the library, walls lined with faded hymnals and family Bibles. In a corner, she discovered a locked alcove covered by an old tapestry. Forcing it aside, she revealed a stone prayer bench and a statue of St. Aldwyn, a gaunt figure crowned with a wreath of oak leaves and deep black eyes of polished onyx. As Clara stared, the air in the chapel thickened, and the candles around her guttered, their flames dancing wildly. A distant melody, an old hymn, rose in the silence. She felt a strange warmth on the back of her neck, as if someone had breathed. Clara took an involuntary step back, eyes fixed on the statue's onyx gaze. "Who's there?" she whispered, voice trembling. Only silence answered. Then softly, behind her, in a breath as gentle as a prayer, Clara heard her name. Clara. She froze, the hair on her neck standing on end. Chapter 8. Revelation. Clara could no longer tell where the night ended and the presence began. The storm's thunder seemed to answer the same hymn, as lightning revealed symbols carved above the doorframe. The very oak leaf motif she had seen before. She understood with a shock. The Whitmores had consecrated the house as a shrine to Aldwyn, a saint not of mercy, but of old vows and blood. Each generation had tried to appease him in secret, sacrificing innocence in his name for prosperity. Clara's eyes blurred with tears. She remembered the final entry in the journal. The blood of Whitmore will keep the promise alive. A whisper drifted through the chapel, as soft as velvet. Daughter of the covenant, it is your turn. Clara realized with a chill that the voice was speaking to her, and in that instant, she knew the truth of what she must do. Chapter 9. The Ritual. Somewhere in the house, a door creaked shut by itself. Clara returned to the chapel with a resolve she hardly understood. On the altar stone lay a silver chalice, tarnished and empty, and the carved book of Whitmore families was open to a blank page. Raindrops hammered on the roof, as if impatient. Clara placed the medallion in the chalice and closed her eyes, repeating a phrase from the journal. By oak and blood, we are bonded for eternity. As the words left her lips, a searing pain blossomed in her palm. The medallion dug into her skin, and a thin stream of blood welled up from the wound. Above her, the statue of Aldwyn seemed to nod. When Clara finally opened her eyes, the chalice at her feet held a single drop of crimson blood. Chapter 10. Whispers. Dawn rose over the estate. The first light found Clara Whitmore standing by the altar, unmoving, her face serene and pale. Behind her, the chapel lay cleansed. The symbols no longer bled darkness, and the air was peaceful, as if a vow had been fulfilled. She held the journal and the medallion in her hands, but did not speak. Outside, the storm had passed. The birds of the forest began their morning song, and the wind in the trees sounded almost like soft singing. Villagers passing by the house swore they saw Clara's figure at a second-story window, watching. When they called her name, there was only a faint echo and the hush of prayers on the morning breeze. A prayer of thanks, or perhaps a plea, in a language they did not know. In the new daylight, the old house seemed at peace at last. Clara Whitmore remained silent by the altar, and whatever fate had been sealed in the night now lay beyond telling.